Let's create a new solution. Select the Avalonia.NET MVVM and then create. When you open our project, the first thing that you see is this simple text block. It was created using MVVM. So what you can see here, there is the binding of greeting property. If you go to the view model, here is the property. There is a partial and view model base first. In MVVM Toolkit, the view model class should be partial and inherit from observable object. So how this XAML window knows about the view model? It's here. We're specifying the project name and then the view model folder. And then we're creating an object here of, we're using this variable and setting it to main window view model and create the data context of main window view model. This means go find your bindings in the main window of your model. We're going to create a counter example where we have a text block and two buttons. The first one is an increment button and the second one is a reset button. Let's get started. Let's create our view model. Counter view model. Alright, as we said, so inherit from the base view model. We said that we need a text block, so we need to add the attribute observable property and a field here of the count int, and let's call it count. And then here we need for the two buttons, we need a relay command and private void, and let's call it increment. It should be this. It should be property. We're not getting the property because we need the partial so that the search generated could make his property. So partial relay command. Alright. And here, so count, you can see there is auto completion of the property. So what's happening right now, this observable property creates the property of this field. If you put our mouse on it, you can see, scroll down, you can see here the field, and at the end, you can see the generated code here. And we can see it here if you go to dependency, .NET and source generators, and here community toolkit, counter view model, okay. You can see the property that was generated in the source generator. That's what observable property is doing. And then let's add the second button for the reset. So relay command and private void reset, and let's do count is equal to 0. And that's it. Let's go to our view. Let's create it, counter window, Alright, let's remove this string that comes with it. Okay, what we need, so instead of writing, I'm going to the main window and copy the folder, this namespace. And here, paste it, okay? Now we can add the X data type and say VM and select the counter view model. And now we need to add the data context. So design.data context, and now we're going to create the instance of the counter view model. All right, and that's it. Now this counter window is linked to the counter view model. Now we can create our stack layout. Let's open our previewer. Okay, and let's add our first text block. Text is going to be binding to the count. Let's increase the font size. Font size, let's say 30. All right. Also center it. Horizontal alignment, center. Here we're going to add the margin of 10 as an example. Okay, let's create the buttons. Button. The content is going to be increment or increase, just increase. And for the binding, we're going to use the command binding to, let's see what we name it, increment command. So we have to add in the XAML here, we need to add the command. It's important. And the same thing, so we're going to align it to the center. So horizontal alignment center. All right, and let's create the second. That's going to be reset command. All right, let's name it reset. Okay, I'm going to give it a little bit of margin here. So left 0, top, let's say 10, it's okay. 0, 0. If we click on it, you can see it's working. So once we click the counter viewer model, this one is running and increase. Let's try the, where is it? Let's close this one and counter. Okay, remove this one. Let's reset. As you can see, it's working perfectly. This is a simple example of a counter. Just to recap what we did here, we created a counter. Let's run it. Oh, actually, if we run it, we will get the main window, not this counter. So we need to change the default startup to the counter window. To do that, let's go to app here, app.xaml.cs, and change the counter window and counter view model. All right, let's run our code. There is it. Let's increase. Let's reset. Increase, reset. It's working perfectly. All right, let's try another example. Let's do a form. In this form, we're going to have a text box. We will have username text box and password. So we will have 4. Let's draw it. First, let's create the view. The view, and here let's call it login window. Login window. All right, I'm going to copy the same here, this directory to the view model, paste it here, and the same thing here, but we didn't create the view model of the, okay, let's create the view model too. Login view model. Okay, that's it. We will come to it when we finish with the XAML. And here, let's do login. Okay. Open the previewer. Oh, the preview is not working. Let's try to build. You know, we have to close the solution and open it. So close solution and open it again. Normally it should work. All right, yes. Okay. Now we need a stack layout. And here we have a text box and text. I'm not going to add the text, I'm just going to enter the placeholder, which is the watermark. Enter username, that's what I'm going to do currently, and then duplicate it. This one for the password, okay, and at the end the button. So just going to add the content. Let's call it login as an example. And that's it. Let's go to our, wait a second, we're going to set the width to 300. All right, and now let's center this. Horizontal alignment center. Okay, can add the margin 5. Same thing for others. This one too. Okay, and now let's go to the login window. Okay, first it should be partial, and inherit from the base view model. Now we need the text box. For the text box with the username and also for the password. So here let's do observable property and the field private string. It could be null, username and password. Alright, and for the button we like command private void login. So I want to, for the login, I want to see in the output, so I'm going to add debug dot writeline, and here I'm going to add logged in as username. Alright, that's it. Let's go and see it. So we have to make it as our main window for startup. So login alright, let's say admin password 123 login. So we should see in the output we couldn't see anything. You know why? We haven't bind it to the view model yet. I forgot. So let's go to the window. Did I bind it? I didn't even bind it to the view model. There is no data context. So here design.data context, and here the VM. Alright, now I added the data context, and now let's add the bindings here. So text binding to what we call it, username. Yes. A text binding and password. When we write into the password, we are getting plain text. So to change it into asterisk, into a password character, we need to add the password. Wait a sec, let me get outside of this. Password char, and let's add asterisk here. And let's go to the button and add command. And here, what we named it, binding, I think login. Okay. I think now it should work. Let's run it. Right, let's say admin login. Should see in the output. I don't know, the output is not showing. So it's not running because we have to run it in debugging mode. Press F5. Okay, let's say admin. Alright, and click on login. Let's go to debug output, and you can see here logged in as admin. So it's working. So in this example, we used these two text box and a button. It looks simple, like the previous. What if right now we want to add validation? For example, if it's empty here, shows below it something that says it should be, for example, username is required and password is required. Actually, it's really simple. What you should do is actually here do this, and in here what you are going to do is just write the data annotation required. You can leave it that way, or you can customize the error. There is a default error if you don't customize it, but let's do username is required. And the same thing for the password. So bring it here. Alright, username, and here password is required. Okay, we are getting this because it's saying that cannot be used to generate observable property as it has one validation attribute, but it declared in the type that doesn't inherit from as observable validator. So which means that this view model inherits from observable object, but we need to inherit from observable validator. If we go to this observable object, you can see that it's implementing two iNotify property changed and iNotify property changing. Note that. And now we're going to change it to observable validator. Observable validator. Now, alright, you can see the errors went off, and let's click here and pressing Ctrl to then click. You can see that this observable validator is inheriting observable object, but also iNotify data error info, and this is required to get that error below the text box. And that's it. That's all what we can add. We have nothing to add more than that. If we run our code again, all right, let's say here we need to add another attribute, which is notify data error info, and copy it and paste it here for the password too. We can also add another one, for example here minimum length. So let's add another data annotation. So min length, let's say 6, and error message, let's say password too short, and let's run our code again. All right, as you can see, if we remove it, we get this, and also here it's saying too short. That's it. We said 6 characters, as you can see, and that's it. We just need to change it to observable validator and add the notify data error info, and then add the data annotations that you like. Required, and can add minimum length and other ones too. Okay, let's add one thing more about the button. Let's say I want to be able to click it only when the username doesn't have an error. So to do that, it's really simple too. So what we have to do is actually here create a method, private bool, let's call it can login. All right, and let's do a get has errors, but it should be negative. If it has errors, you can't log. So if it's true, it should turn to false. So you have to disable the button. You will not be able to click it. And here inside the relay command, which we can do, can execute and name of that method that we just created, which is can log. Can execute name can log. Where we're getting error. Create can log. Alright, and now if we run our code again, we'll see if the text box is empty, we'll not be able to see the output in the debugging output window. Alright, let's click on it here. Let's see the output. Login as, actually it's printing, it means it's not working. Okay, what's the problem here? So what we can do is add here and string dot is null, or white space, and add the username, and add the opposite here because we want to check when the username is empty. So here the login should only be enabled when the username is not empty. Let's run our code again. Okay, now as you can see, it's disabled. Let's press A as an example. It's disabled, even though I'm writing something. Okay, the problem here is that we need something to track the change of username. So because we added observable property, we can do a partial method like this. Partial void on username changed. Okay, let's add the string value login.command. So this is the button .notify can execute changed. So this will notify every time the username changes. So this is a partial method that gets automatically called when the username property changes. We can do it because we did to the username, we gave it the observable property attribute. So when we do that, the toolkit generates a username property and a special hook. So if we implement it, it runs every time the value of the username changes. So now if we run our code again, it's disabled. Let's press A. As you can see, it's enabled again. Press admin. Let's go to the output. It's working. And now let's remove it. Let's remove the value. It's back to disable. As you can see now, that partial method is working, is tracking the value of the username. Now we're going to create a simple to-do list application. There are still few concepts that need to be understood. So let's get started. View model. Let's call it task view model. Let's make it partial. and inherit from the view model base. And the task box has a text box and the list box where we store our tasks. So let's start with the text box. Observable property and private void, string, not void, and task name, and initialize it as string.empty. And now observable property private, here the type is observable collection instead of a list or IEnumerable. So this is where we're going to store our tasks. So it's type of list, and new, let's initialize it, or let's give it a name, tasks. Why we are using observable collection and not list and IEnumerable? It's because observable collection has INotify collection changed, which means when we add a task to it, the UI will notify and the list box will be updated. If we do a list or IEnumerable, when we add a task to the collection, it will not be notified. You can see nothing in the screen. That's why observable collection here is the perfect choice. And we need a button to add our task. So relay command private void add task, and here we're going to check if the text box is not null. So if string dot is null or white space, okay, here task, the property, not the field. If it's not empty, we're going to add tasks dot add, and let's add the task. So it should be string and task. Alright. And also we need to add a button inside the list. So with each task, it should have a button to remove it. So relay command private void delete task, and yes, add the parameter, and then tasks dot remove task. And at the end, we're going to create a button to clear all tasks. Relay command private void clear tasks. And here let's do tasks dot clear. Also, we need here to create in the constructor, we need to add few tasks. So here tasks, the property, not the field, dot add. Okay. Alright, now let's go to the view. Let's call it task window. So right now what we're going to do is link it to the viewer model and set its data context. So let's go to the main window. Let's copy the path to the folder. And also copy the viewer model. And here let's do task viewer model. Alright. And now let's give it the data context. So here design dot data context. Okay, let's create the instance VM task viewer model. Alright, okay, now we linked it. Let's start designing. So we're going to create inside the grid layout, grid, and here let's do row definition. Going to create 3 rows. First one outer, where our text box and button to add, and then the list box, so take as much space as it needs, and then auto for the clear button. Okay, and now we're going to create our first row. Let's add the margin of 10, and also going to change the orientation to horizontal. Now let's create our text box, and let's set watermark, which is a placeholder. Enter a task. Okay, let's set its width to 300. Alright, and now let's bind it to text, bind it to the task name. Okay, now let's add the button, so content add task, and command is the, let's do bind it to add task command. Okay, let's give it a little bit of margin so it stays away from the task box. So margin from the left 10 0 0 0. Alright, that's it. Let's create the list box and give it the grid.row1. Okay, and then give it the items source of tasks binding to tasks. Alright, as you can see. And then add inside each task, we actually need a name here and the button. And to do that, we need to do list access the list box dot item template, and then data template. And then here we're going to create a grid which has two columns. Column definition. So first one is asterisk, take as many space at it as you need, and then auto for the remove button. Okay, the first, it's the task block and text binding, and that's it, binding without any property name. This means bind it to the current context which is the task itself, which is a task string. And then let's add the button. Okay, for the button we're going to add the content first. Let's call it remove and then command. Okay, look, the command is a little bit tricky. Look, I did binding. If I write remove, as you can see, so let's go to view model. We call delete. Okay, let's do delete. First, let's correct the column grid.column1. All right, it's far away. Let's reduce the width. Let's do it 400. Okay, I'm going to say request theme variant. Let's say to dark. Okay, and now let's zoom. All right, as you can see, we said it's called here delete. Okay, let's call it delete 2 for the text. Remove, delete. If I do delete, you can see that there is no auto-completion because the current context is the task itself, it's the string itself. This is a problem. The current context is the tasks, but what we need the current context to be the task view model, which is in the list box level. And to do that, there is special test syntax, which is $, then parent, and then list box. This means find the nearest list box parent, or another way, go up from this button until you find a list box. And then we're going to do a casting VM to view model and cast the data to data context, then dot. As you can see, now we can access the delete task command again. So here the problem is when we are inside the list box dot item template, the data context for each item here is the individual task string, which is task 1, task 2, task 3, not the task view model. What we want to do is access the list task command, which is on the task view model. So this parent list box means find the nearest list box parent, or another way, go up from this button until you find the list box, and then get the data context of that list box. And then when we get the data context of that list box, we are able to find the delete task command. Okay, that's it. And now we actually need to pass it a parameter here, the task. And to do that, we need to add command parameter and bind it to the current context, which means we don't need to pass any parameter because the current context is the string itself, the task name itself. It's going to pass the name of the task. Alright, that's it here. Okay, let's build our task. Alright, as you can see, I can delete. Let me finish draw the last button here, which is the clear all, and then run it. So here, inside the grid, okay, you say button, and let's say grid dot column 012, grid 2, 012, yes. And then let's say content, clear, why, what's going on? Ah, not column, it's a row. Yes. To margin 10, okay, and command, and bind it to the clear command. Bind it the clear task command, okay. Okay, let's run our code. I don't know why everything is dark here. Ah, I forgot, it's called login window. I'm not running the task, so what you should do is go to app.xaml, not this one, .cs, and change it to task window. And here, task view model. And now let's run our code again. Alright. Delete it, it's working. Remove it, clear everything. Task 1. Okay. Task 2. Okay, there is something, it's not working. First, when we add, we need to clear this and see what's the problem here. Okay, let's go. Let's go and see what's going on. First, here, when we add, we should remove the task name is equal to string.empty, okay, and then let's go to the XAML. Why? Let's center this. Vertical alignment. Center. Okay, but why? When we add, it's not working properly. DB context and take the string. Yeah. Not task. Actually, I did a mistake here. It should be empty. Here, actually, add task name. Alright. There's no parameter here. We don't need this parameter. So checking if the text box is not empty. If it's not empty, okay, we're going to add its content. That's it. Let's run it again. Okay. Let's do task 4. Add, okay, delete this, clear all, okay. You saw when we run our code, we get the width of the window huge, and to do that, let's remove this behind code, so this design height and design width is for the previewer, but for the actual window output is just width. Width, and let's do 500 for example, like, yeah, it's too big. Let's do width is 400 and height 450 as an example, or 402. Let's run our code again and you will see the output. That's it, as you can see. Okay, let's recap what we did in this video. We wanted to create a task list as this. So we said that observable collection is responsible for updating the UI. If you change it to a list or enumerable, you will see that when you add a task here, you will not see it updated here, because this is implementing the iNotify that track the changes in the list box. It tracks the changes in the collection here. And the other concept is, there were a problem here is trying to access the data context of the list box that has the task view model while we were inside the item template, that the data context were the data context of the task, which is a string. And to find it, we need to go back above and find the list box and get its data context in order to be able to access the delete task command. And that's it.